Ladies, gentlemen and MBs, welcome to the first of my 2020 painting logs. Just to let you know what's different this time around, as you can probably tell from the title of the video, these are going to be coming out every 2 months rather than every month this year. Also, I guess the fact that it came out in March kind of gives that away too. I don't have a hard target for models painted this year, although of course I do want to paint more than I buy, and it would be nice if I managed to beat my total from last year, which is this. I don't actually remember it offhand. But with that said, let's see what I've painted in the first 2 months of this year. The first model finished of 2020 was a Goblin. More specifically, a 2nd edition Gretchen. He's had a few modifications, like the spike and the skull are gone from his helmet, and I added some fur to him with green stuff. But the thing you'll probably most notice is the star, which is actually a bit of star-shaped glitter. Because, yeah, this is a test model for a little Grot Rebellion detachment I'm putting together. After all, I can't have a red gobbo and not give him comrades. That's just not right. It's just something fun to ally with my other armies rather than a full force in its own right. It's going to involve a fair bit of conversion work, but it wouldn't feel like a real greenskin army to me if you didn't have to bust out the green stuff on plasticards, so it's fine. Second up, we have a Stormcast. Sort of. I picked up the first issue of Mortal Realms, the Age of Sigmar equivalent to Conquest, and I got 3 Stormcast and a bunch of chain rasps for £3. So I figured it'd be a fun idea to do that thing that everyone does and have a shot at making a big Space Marine using them. In this case it was mostly just changing out their head, adding the backpack and giving them some more equipment, although the most fiddly part was taking the halo off the helmet so I could put it on the backpack. Also, I depointed the shoes a bit, although I doubt anyone would actually notice that. Since I ended up leaving the Stormcast iconography on them, I thought it'd be fun to paint it up as a literal Space Marine Stormcast, you know, really lean into the crossover nature of the model. And I'm glad I did, since I've not really done that much gold on a model before, so it was a fun change of pace. Also, I kind of forget how big Stormcast are, even compared to Primaris, although it's especially funny when put next to my old Beakies. Now for another gobbo, or 2 I suppose. So I mentioned that Grot Rebellion detachment earlier, and since it's not really possible to make a legal battle-forged army entirely out of grots, I knew that I'd need to proxy some things. And this is what I've put together to represent a run herd. The thought process is that multiple grots would be a good stand-in for the increased stat line of a single orc, with the one at the back standing on a barrel to make the whole thing closer in stature to what it's representing. That he's holding a weapon that's unique to runt herds should hopefully also make it easier for any opponent to remember what it is. I also had to chop away the hand that was originally holding onto the squig and re-sculpt the rest of it, which is a little rough in places, but it does the job. Also, the star on the grot on the barrel's belt is some little nail art decorations that Snipe found for me that were just the perfect size. I'll likely be doing similar things whenever I have to represent something that would usually be an orc, although it does mean that I technically end up buying multiple grots to make a single model, screwing with my bought to painted ratio right out of the gate. Oh, and the little lines on the barrel are actually the orcish rune for grot, which felt fitting. But what is a runt herd without runts to herd? So here's one regular Gretchen for my rebellion. And did I say 1? I meant 6. Being freed up from doing one of these videos every month meant that I had a little bit more time to actually batch paint things. Previously I could never be sure that I'd actually finish the whole batch within a month, since I'm notoriously slow at painting and so would probably have nothing to show. But since I knew I had 2 months, I was free to just go for it. There's a handful of small modifications in here, like when I removed the existing rune and replaced it with a star, or where I gave this one a new shanker by making it out of green stuff. I really enjoyed doing these. In fact, I enjoyed them enough that I've stripped and modified a bunch of grots from my existing orc army to join the revolution. So I've got another 13 grots to go, just got to paint them now. Next is something a little different. It's one of those Bandai Cheapies that recently came out, but I've decided to repaint it. I just primed it straight over the original paint job just because I didn't really know how the vinyl or paint would react to any of the stripping methods I use. So there's a couple of parts like the gun where the paint is pretty thick, but that's because it was pretty thick on the original model anyway. Rather than go for a radically different scheme, I thought I'd try and go for an improved version of the default one. I think it turned out pretty well, although there's a few bits that I'll touch up when I can be bothered. Also, I think this shows just how much you can add to these models by simply adding a bit of texture to the base. It just really helps them pop. Last up, we have a Sister of Battle from the big battle force that we got last year. Since this is a joint force both Snipe and I are putting together, we've ummed and ahed about how to paint them, and after much discussion we decided that we should just do what we always wanted to do and make them cornate. This is the test model for that, so I guess add one to my models bought from last year since I ended up being the person who actually painted this one. It's a relatively simple scheme, but that means that both of us can replicate it easily without either of our individual styles standing out too much. For modifications, this one had the horns removed from the smouldering corpse, the winged Inquisition symbol shaved off the shoulder, the skull on a spike added, and the hanging Inquisition symbol turned into a generic rectangle charm since, like many of them, it would be a pain to smoothly remove. The fleur-de-lis is kept since from an in-universe perspective, they're still sisters, and in a real-world perspective, have you seen how many of them there are on these models? But yeah, expect a few more Chaos Sisters throughout the year. And that was what I painted in the first 2 months of 2020. Pretty happy with my start, even if a lot of them were grots. I mean, I think I probably did more conversion work in the last 2 months than I did in the entirety of last year, so it's all good. This means that going into March, I am up to 11 models painted in 2020 against 26 models bought. I'm really being screwed over by those chain rasps that came with Mortal Realms, aren't I? I really need to figure out something to do with them. But anyway, that was my first painting log of this year, and I've already got some fun stuff partially painted that'll be in the next video, so hopefully you'll get a kick out of those. But for now, I bid you good day and good luck on your own painting projects.